I'm Julie ZENNER, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North. The City of Superior is considering changing the way it allocates tourism taxes. We will talk with the mayor about that proposal. September is National Recovery Month, and Recovery Alliance Duluth is emphasizing that help is available for those struggling with addiction. And we'll have a story from Grand Marais as the PBS national program Craft in America makes a stop at the Folk House School. Those stories and voices of the region coming up on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. Denny is off this week. Well, after 4 years of construction, Superior Street in downtown Duluth fully reopened to the public today. The $31.5 million project to rebuild Duluth's oldest street began in 2018. The major downtown artery was rebuilt from the 600 block of West Superior Street to the 400 block of East Superior Street. Recent rains have allowed the DNR to loosen some restrictions in the Arrowhead region. Beginning today, campfires are allowed in fire rings at homes, cabins, and campgrounds. We'll have more on the fire danger in northern Minnesota later in the show. The Superior National Forest also this week reopened most of the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness to overnight trips. Some entry points remain closed due to existing fires, and the Superior Hiking Trail reopened its campsites for public use, but no campfires are allowed. Essentia Health's new clinic in Moose Lake will open next Tuesday. The clinic is located in Moose Lake's hospital building. The 10,000 square foot clinic has 14 exam rooms and is a $4 million project. The Superior City Council is set to vote next week on a proposal that would change the way the city's hotel-motel tax collections are distributed. The change would create a tourism commission with the power to determine how those tax proceeds are distributed. Currently, Travel Superior receives about 2/3 of that money to promote tourism in the area, but that could change under this new plan. Well, joining us with more on the proposal is Jim Paine, the mayor of Superior. And Mayor Paine, thank you for coming in again. You were just here a couple of weeks ago, but it's always good to have you here in the studio.
Well, I was enjoying myself. Thanks, Julie.
All right. Maybe you could start with just kind of a baseline. On average, how much are those tourism tax collections every year, and how roughly are they distributed?
Well, it's not really an average because it's been growing every year. We've been filling almost every hotel room in the city over the past few years. So COVID was an exception, but generally we're probably looking at between $600,000 and $800,000 in the coming year in 2022. And right now, 70% of that money goes to goes to Travel Superior by contract, a tourism entity. And what we're proposing is instead allocating that to a tourism commission that could still contract with organizations like Travel Superior, but would have many more options in how it markets tourism and carries out development within the community.
So why would this tourism commission be a better structure in your opinion?
State statute gives us two options for distributing the money, and the one we use right now requires us to give it to just one organization, and there's only one organization that's eligible, and the law was written that way. To give ourselves options and to be able to choose between not only different marketing companies, but to invest in local tourism development or to try and grow and improve the city in a way that would attract visitors, we need to create a commission. So the statute allows us to have some control over the money, but it requires an independent body to do that, and that's a tourism commission.
And who would be represented on that commission?
So that's it's a public appointment process, but I've already named the people that I intend to appoint to it. It's 6 members, all of whom are local business owners in Superior, all of them in the hospitality industry. The only requirement, though, is that at least one represents the businesses that pay the tax, which is the lodging industry.
Now, Travel Superior, the folks associated with that organization, are a little concerned that they could lose the contract that they have with the city. How do you see that playing out? Have they been meeting the expectations of the city? Is there reason to think that there could be some major changes coming?
Well, really, it's not about whether they've been meeting the expectations or not. It's about whether they are giving them all of the money is the very best way to promote tourism and tourism development within the community. And so it's really about reviewing the options. So I think it is very likely that they're going to get a contract of some kind. For example, they run our visitor center, and I don't know that anybody else can do that better. I think that's pretty unlikely. So they're certainly going to get money to do that. But there's also the question of marketing. So they contract with out-of-town marketing companies to market our area, and they make that decision. I believe the City Council thinks that that decision should at least be reviewed by public officials.
So Superior is considering sending out a request for proposal for the tourism services currently that are provided by Travel Superior. What's next in that process? How do you have to get this commission in place for that RFP to go out?
Yes. So like I mentioned, we can't put it out to bid if we keep the current structure because there's only one bidder. State statute doesn't allow us to give it to anybody else. So in order to put it out to bid, we have to create a commission and they would put it out to bid. Now we've created a draft RFP. I'm sure they will tweak that and express a little bit more about what they want to see out of marketing services or any other form of tourism promotion and development. But they would put that RFP out, and over the next few weeks and months, they would review the bids that come back, and they could allocate one or many contracts using the money that we give to them.
As you know, Duluth recently went through an RFP process that was quite contentious when Visit Duluth, a longtime partner, was not chosen to do the marketing for the city, but rather that was given to a Twin Cities firm. Would you be open if the RFPs came back to maybe sending some of those tourism dollars outside the city of Superior?
Well, a lot of them go outside the city right now. Most of the firms that market tourism on behalf of Travel Superior are out-of-town marketing firms, almost all of them actually. So, and I don't think that's a controversial decision. You want the best possible marketers, and you want people that understand the audience that you're actually talking to. You do want local people in charge of choosing them though, and you want local people that understand the hospitality industry to approve the marketing campaigns and make sure that it really represents us. And that's what a tourism commission does. It's locally, it's publicly appointed officials making those decisions right out in public meetings with public minutes where everybody gets to be a part of that decision.
And what are you hearing from local businesses in that hospitality and tourism industry?
Well, to tell you the truth, very little. I think for the most part, we've done a good job of providing transparency and representing our business community, and I think the city's built quite a bit of trust. And it's worth noting that at least my appointments for the first commission will be all business owners within the city of Superior. So I think their interests are going to be very well represented. But I think most people just want to see options and make sure that the very best people are representing us and helping to develop this community, and that's what this is really all about.
All right, well, I'm sure it's something that folks will be watching pretty carefully over in Superior. Thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Of course, thanks, Julie.
Thank you. It's time now for Voices of the Region. Each week we hear from a journalist covering stories of interest in the Northland. This week, Timberjay publisher Marshall Helmberger from Tower is our guest.
St. Louis County's case count is already rising quickly. They had 273 new cases reported in the past week, and that's a jump of 52% over the week before. So that's a huge, trajectory in terms of increasing cases. And a lot of those cases are showing up outside of the Duluth area in places where vaccination rates are lower than the countywide average. I know the Tower area reported 9 new cases this past week, and we know of at least one death in Tower reportedly due to COVID. So this is definitely very real what's happening now. I mean, this is going potentially could be at least as bad a spike as what we saw last winter. And this new variant is not only more contagious, it seems to be hitting younger people a lot harder, than some of the earlier variants. And despite this spike in cases, schools in our region are not requiring masks, and none are considering distance learning at this point. And some of our area school boards are somewhat divided on that issue. So it may depend on what happens when schools open next week. Health officials here did mention that when Albert Lee opened their schools early this year, they had a case outbreak the first week. They had 36 cases and they had 290 students and staff in quarantine by the end of the first week. And there's obviously fear here that many of the school districts in our area could experience similar outcomes once schools open. We certainly have been reporting extensively on the Greenwood fire and some of the other fires in the Boundary Waters. And the good news there is that the rains over the weekend really helped to give the firefighters the upper hand on the Greenwood fire and some of the others. And the fire officials now say they expect to have full containment of that Greenwood fire by September 10th. But we're also decided to take a look more in depth on the fires in the Quetico, just across the border in northwestern Ontario. And the fires they have there really dwarf what we've been dealing with here. And in part because, Canadian authorities weren't really actively trying to suppress the fires in the Quetico. I mean, partly that's due to policy, where in remote parks, the Canadian authorities do allow, they say, fire to, work its natural role. And so they do allow some of that. Also, for a considerable part of the summer, northwestern Ontario was dealing with a tremendous number of wildfires, and some of those threatened remote communities. So they really had their resources dedicated elsewhere. Now, a lot of those fires have been extinguished, and so they're able to start doing some suppression work in the Quetico, although it's pretty limited, compared to what we've thrown at the Greenwood fire here on our side of the border. The fire ultimately will probably benefit moose and a number of other fire-dependent plant and animal species in the Quetico. So, as the Canadian officials acknowledge, I mean, fire does have a role to play in the environment up here. I mean, these are fire-dependent and fire-shaped forests in our region, and so it's being allowed to play its natural role there in the Quetico. It was really unbelievable. The winner of this tournament caught 98 bass, weighing a total of 247 pounds. And that was almost double the previous record for this Pro Bass Tour. It's the Classic Bass Champions Tour, and it was held on August 26th, based in Orr. And Adam Rasmussen, he's the lucky angler who won this time. He's from Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, and he had struggled a bit at some of the other competitions on the tour, but he said the stars just aligned for him on Pelican Lake. And for an extended period, he was catching a bass, mostly smallmouth, on virtually every cast. And he wasn't alone. I mean, the fishermen had a great day on Pelican Lake, and this was the first time this tour had come to Pelican Lake, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be back, because I think a lot of the anglers were really, really surprised at how well they did. I mean, the second place finisher tallied 32 fish, weighing in at over 105 pounds, and that's a haul that would have netted him first place in the previous two competitions in this tour. So this is definitely bringing some attention to Orr. I mean, when these bass competitions, there's thousands of people who follow these tournaments as they happen over apps now that instantly record the fish as they're caught and estimate the size and weight. And so there's, this is definitely going to bring much wider awareness of just what a spectacular fishery they have on Pelican Lake.
In 2020 alone, more than 1,000 Minnesotans lost their lives to an overdose. On Tuesday, folks gathered in Duluth's Lincoln Park to honor those lost on Overdose Awareness Day. It also marked the start of National Recovery Month in September. Here with more on the importance of raising awareness is Julie VENA, Program Director at Recovery Alliance Duluth, and Beth ELSTAD is the Executive Director of Recovery Alliance Duluth. And welcome. Thank you so much for coming in and talking about this pretty important topic. Julie, let's start with you. Is there still a stigma that's attached to substance abuse and addiction that prevents people from getting the help that they need?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think Recovery Alliance Duluth would exist if the stigma wasn't real and wasn't alive. I mean, I think there still is a barrier that prevents people from reaching out or moving forward. There's still a challenge in people just kind of admitting that they need help.
Sure. And so International Overdose Awareness Day held this week. What's the main message that you're trying to get out with an event like that and by commemorating a day like that?
So we recognized International Overdose Awareness Day to really honor the folks that have lost their lives due to overdose, but also recognize the countless families that were impacted and bring some awareness to overdose and at the epidemic levels that we're experiencing in our community. We also followed Overdose Awareness Day with a proclamation of the beginning of Recovery Month, which shortly began on September 1st. So we really, when we can't talk about overdose without talking about recovery. So, yeah.
Let's talk about the epidemic of overdose first. Are men and women impacted equally, or is the age a factor? What are some of the things that you see that might be common?
So I would say the Duluth Police Department has some very good statistics on specifics, and I believe that men were impacted at a greater number. As far as the age range, I'm hesitant to say that, and I think that we could definitely give you some more specifics. You know, it impacts everybody, and so we have to be.
Are certain substances more often than not involved in our region?
Oh my gosh.
I would say not. I would say, you know, there are many different substances being used and one isn't dominant to the other.
You know, and I think heroin, we're seeing a lot of overdoses with opioids, heroin, and we're seeing methamphetamines, fentanyl. And while we see overdose, we also still need to recognize that alcohol is taking the lives of more people in our community. So we have to have that conversation as well.
What's Duluth doing right in terms of trying to wrap its arms around this problem?
Oh, I think Duluth is an incredible community, and I think the recovery community is alive and well with hope and joy, and I think people in the Duluth community are proud of recovery. I think Mayor Larson did an excellent job when she recognized National Overdose Awareness Day, but then also National Recovery Month, in really standing behind that the city of Duluth and in our entire region, we see you as people. And we see that recovery is real.
Maybe you could talk about your organization and what you do to really help people get on that road to recovery and stay on that road.
So I'm a person in long-term recovery, and just knowing that substance use disorder is a chronic health issue. And so we need support throughout the whole continuum. And Recovery Alliance Duluth works to support people. We meet people where they're at. We honor their recovery and whatever pathway works for them. So we don't tell people what to do, we ask them what works for them. We support them, we connect them with resources. We provide peer recovery support using our shared experience, our credential, our training. We train people to become peer recovery specialists in our community. We've trained over 100 individuals. Julie would have exact numbers, but it's over 100 and since we've began, which was something we didn't have in our community before RAD started. We are doing a lot of campaigning about reducing and eliminating the stigma that surrounds recovery and substance use. And really what we're doing is we're showing up, we're collaborating with many agencies in our community. The St. Louis County, we're in the jails, we're in the corrections, we're in some safe babies courts, we're in the treatment courts. We're in treatment providers, we're in the community, we're in shelters, homeless shelters. So we really are fortunate to have a community that recognizes the need and is willing to support us in doing this work.
It sounds like it's really a collaborative effort in the city of Duluth.
Absolutely.
And you find that as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm the program director, so I get a lot of those collaborative relationships and conversations, and I believe we wouldn't be able to do what we do unless we work together.
Talk about some success stories, either your own or ones that you see in the community.
Oh my gosh. Well, the fact that we have a recovery community organization in our region, we're the first RCO in this region. That's a success story. We're here, we're showing up. We are seeing families reunited, some out of home placements. When seeing some reunifications with folks, and we're supporting them through that. Success is defined differently by everybody, and we just see when somebody's willing to have a conversation and talk about their recovery with us, that's a success. When we're able to talk about this as a health issue out in the open and reduce the shame, that's a success. And that's happening.
We have about 30 seconds left, and I understand there's a walk for recovery that's planned. Tell people what is planned for that and how they can get involved.
Oh, absolutely. So the walk is September 11th from 1 p.m. actually until 7 p.m. So there'll be a walk, there'll be food trucks, there'll be activities for kids, there'll be a bouncy house, and then a recovery concert from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m.
And is this something that anybody can take part in?
Absolutely. We hope everybody will.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much for coming in. Good luck with the walk. I hope that you get a lot of people there. I hope it raises a lot of money and that you can continue to do good work in the community.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the North House Folk School in Grand Marais has attracted students from every state and around the world. Last week, a production team from the PBS national program Craft in America was in town. WDSE videographer Steve Ash stopped by to find out more about their visit.
Bring the bevel up, and from that bevel go square back.
North House has had a number of different crafts that have, of course, been part of the fabric of the school since the very beginning. Without question, timber framing is one of them. If you walk across our campus, I mean, it's clearly part of the character of the school. It's kind of right at the heart of what we do.
We came to Minnesota to the North House Folk School because we are doing an episode of Craft in America titled Home. And I knew of the North House Folk School small timber frame class and decided it would fit perfectly into this episode. My name is Carol SAUVION, and I'm the Executive Director of Craft in America. And we are a nonprofit based in Los Angeles with a mission to promote and advance original handcrafted work through programs in all media. Our most important program is the documentary series that we produce for PBS. Normally we will come in and we'll spend 2 to 3 days on a segment. There are between 4 and 6 segments in each of our hours. This time we've come to film the timber frame class, and the actual structure, the timber frame small house, will not be erected until May. So we will come back for a second visit to Minnesota. We're very excited about that.
It's especially meaningful. We're the school. North House is 24 years old. We're on the cusp of celebrating a quarter of a century. Wow, you know, and to have lived through some of the past year and a half of challenges and to know, no, we're strong, we're moving forward, and look who's coming and visiting. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. My name's Greg Wright. I'm the director of the North House Folk School, an educational nonprofit in Grand Marais, Minnesota. North House has steadily grown through our 24 years. There's no question about that. And now, in a typical year, about 70% of our students come from Minnesota. But of course, you can use new math and figure out that it means 30% comes from somewhere else. And somewhere else in the past 5 years has meant 48 different states and 6 foreign countries.
I think a school like North House Folk School is a community, number one, and I think we search for that nowadays. and it's also a school. It's a source. So if people want to learn, some of the classes that are taught here are quite esoteric. I don't know of any other school in the country that is teaching them. So if you want to learn something for whatever purpose, for pleasure or to actually create something, a place like North House is essential. Certainly, of all the places in the U.S. where one can learn craft and where craft has a vitality, I would say Minnesota is by far one of the most important places.
Our dream, in a sense, is to become what we call the northern crossroads of craft, a place that people journey to. So that's what North House's dream is, that we become even more part of the fabric of craft that reaches around this world and that links the people of the North and the people of this world together. That's what our mission is about. Enrich lives, build community. Craft is the vehicle, and that's what we hope comes out of this.
Another national production also visited the Northland last week. America Outdoors is a new 6-part primetime series headed to PBS in the spring of next year. A production team followed Duluth photographer Dudley Edmondson for one of the episodes. The series will showcase the diverse regions across the U.S. and how those landscapes shape the way Americans work, play, and interact outdoors. Fun to see our region getting some national attention. Well, that's our time for this week, but you can keep up with our latest posts by following Almanac North on Facebook and Twitter. Visit the WDSC website for program updates, upcoming events, and more information about the station, and download the PBS video app for on-demand viewing of your favorite PBS programs and past episodes of Almanac North. Thanks to our guests and to the crew here in the studio. I'm Julie ZENNER. We'll see you next time.